we were well established in Ireland then as being one of the strongest clubs outside of Limerick. Outside of Limerick, St. Francis Youth Club was seen to
as I said, Pat, over there, there's our boys magazine. And actually St. Francis Youth Club were in that. There was very few clubs in the country that actually got into it.
That would aspire to that.
And they came after Tullamore.
There was another thought I had that since Martin mentioned it to me, was the dinner dances that we used to have.
You had to bring your parents.
Oh, Jesus above tonight.
So,
but I mean, we had some. Oh yeah. We had some.
The first ones of those were in the club premises themselves.
We reverted to that later on. Remember Denise McCall of Bernie McCormick, Toby Hickey. And we'd done a scene coming back, bringing it back into the club. So it was a parents' night in the club, kind of with that, and they put on a scene from what's that film with John Travolta with the cars? Grease. Remember that?
Yeah. I don't know.
That was after my time, Aaron.
Oh, that was very good. It was very good.
That was in the late 80s.
Yeah, but I can remember the first one.
The early 80s I was gone.
The first parent night we had down there, and we didn't know whether it was going to be a success. We didn't know what would happen, and all the parents came in. All the parents turned up in the small room down there, and we had the back room where the food was in, as we call the other part where the discos.
The games room, as we call it.
Exactly.
Yeah, because the front room was the same.
And they had out in the kitchen, the small kitchen, and all the members of the club, the girls were out there making sandwiches, and we had a big Burko out there, and that was the first parent night. We didn't know how to go or how to go.
The male toilet outside in the back there,
that's right.
The female one upstairs.
That's right, yeah.
Do you remember the time that we had the trouble? Somebody was breaking tiles or something in the male toilet, and we couldn't figure out who
I do. You're
not going to say it on screen what was done now, are you?
No.
Hold it. Because what you're thinking is right. It did actually happen.
We got to the end of it.
We're not going to mention the females involved, right?
Who was involved?
No, I don't.
You don't have to cover your head.
I don't even remember that.
He did on the night.
You think we were there?
But
we were like Hitlers.
Absolutely.
But the thing about it, Pat, was that it was so alien to us. For so many years, as you say, we had fellas come in. I remember going into that club there one night, and we had a club down from, was it Killarney? They were actually Killarney.
Yeah.
And one of the lads came over, because we had a strict drink.
Absolutely.
No drink coming. And one of the lads said to me, Robbie, he said, will you go out the back? He said, there's fellas outside where the kitchen, as you go to the boys.
Yes.
He said, they have Lanigan, so whiskey with him. Of course, Robbie jumped up and went straight out, Here's these fellas, 6 foot something, Kerry fellas out there, and they're Lanigan. So, how are you going? I said, lads, come here, give me them. Boom, pour them down the sink. I'm standing at the sink and saying, Robbie, you could get killed.
Again.
Looked around me, and there's one of the fellas, including you, I think, standing in the hall waiting for us.
Waiting to run.
But I had hoped to see if I'm going to back me. The boys.
But you have to remember, though. I mean, I know we carried the rules through, right? Yeah. But the parents carried them through then as well. Like, to get into St. Francis Youth Club, it was like going into the priesthood. Listen, you're down there, you're in the community, you can't be seen to be thrown out of the club. To be like thrown out of the fucking city hall down below, if you were thrown out. So you couldn't.
I know, yeah.
But you're saying we were like Hitlers, but the members accepted the rules.
Absolutely,
the way it was,
You were all members of St. Francis.
Oh yeah.
What order did you? You weren't all there at the same time, were you? Or
we kind of crossed over. As we say, this is our honorary.
Robbie was there at the very begining.
Then you came in shortly.
The year, I'd say probably 6 months after the thing was up and running, I joined it.
So
that was 1969.
I remember Pat
69
as well.
I 72.
What do you mean, Pat? The whole Hurley family joined. They took over.
Once I got in, the other 10 automatically went on the waiting list.
There was a coup d'etat.
That's right.
What did you come in, Mark?
I came in around about 75,
74,
75. I was gone.
74, 75.
I was gone 74.
I got married in 76, so...
You were still around.
I was there for about 2 years.
I was only thinking about that coming over to Ben there. What number was the U Club in Lady Lane? Just by the number of the door.
I thought it was number 5.
I wasn't sure. I was only thinking, and not many would remember it now, even in the city there, which would probably be a new leaf. that might come out of it. The Legion of Mary was directly across the road, and Mary Halligan and one of the other, a few more of the Halligans used to be down there. But we'd have some of the members on a Saturday night, they'd be coming out of that meeting at 8:20 over into the U Club.
Yeah. And the men's club, or the
men's hostel. And then you had the women's hostel on the other.
So location-wise, where it is now, somebody wants to know where it is now today, you look for the back entrance car park into the Friary, and it's just to the left that. And as you go into the car park, you're actually going in the front door.
That's right.
You have to dance over to your car.
And on Thursday or Saturday night, they release 2 or 3 members on the door with a small little table, the book, right?
That's committee members now.
And as you say,
the cash box.
Somebody taking the register, the cash box, but somebody as well. Like that.
Did you smell drink
coffee? You don't have to. You didn't. Well, in your day, you might have to go that close.
We did.
I have to admit,
because Robbie, things were changing.
But polo mints and everything then, Bob.
I know, but I know. I'm going back to the time we didn't. But I suppose we had a different culture. With a different culture. If you're talking about '69. You know, I was 17, 18.
Sure, you were only fed on potatoes.
But like, it didn't. You know, the pub scene wasn't what it was. It probably changed a year later on, but it didn't have that problem.
Had they still restricted opening hours on the pubs then?
Yeah.
Oh, there was,
the same opening hours, but the thing about it was that, like, it wasn't the pub scene, as I say, wasn't there. If you were going into the pub.
But the Sunday hours were there, certainly. They were closed.
12 to 2 and 2 was it 2 to 4 they were closed.
2 to 4, 2 to
some of them then would close again at 5:30 and 7 o'clock. Like, you know. But the drink thing wasn't big then. No, it wasn't. It was really only into when we got into the 80s, it really started to take off.
When you became chairman, you started to drink like fata down there.
Absolutely.
And I suppose the difference was, what's different to some of the youth clubs that are around now, we weren't actually in youth clubs when we were in 1920, 21. Yeah. Whereas now, you'd be lucky if you called them to 15, 16 kind of years of age. Whereas for us, we were only coming into it nearly at 16 years of age almost.
Oh, that's right.
And that it didn't matter about this thing of whether it was legal or not to drink or whatever like that. Rules were you didn't come into club or go on any trip with.
When we were there and the club was flying, we didn't actually have bloody time to drink.
Yeah.
Because if we weren't at the committee meeting, we were at a subcommittee meeting organising the games night. Yeah. And then you're looking at Wednesday night where we had to go and get all the stuff. Then Thursday night was the games night. Friday night we're looking at cleaning up, and then Saturday evening we're opening up the youth.
Saturday afternoon was clean up.
Yeah.
But Pat,
the 2 of us used to clean the floor.
Absolutely.
With our trousers.
That's right.
Because Owen O'Neill would come around and catch tubes in the headlock.
That's right.
After we'd done most of the cleaning
and swing us all around.
And you remember the old, the wooden floor, all the way at the Barrack Street and everything like that, we'd all be wearing maybe something like a light trouser, something like that, and we'd end up missing, having a bit of a fight or whatever like that, and used to sweep the floor, so I went home more often.
Yeah, filthy.
With stuff like that.
That's a fact now. But the strength of Owen Robbie was unbelievable.
Owen,
he's the director of the youth service.
He's the director of the youth service here now, but he was just a member. But when we were talking earlier on about looking for a youth officer for Waterford, what happened was that through the auspices of St Francis Youth Club, they formed the basis of what kind of became Waterford Regional Youth Service, and that was kind of a diocesan youth service for the broader one. And at that stage, as Robbie said, is in the early stages we were looking just at the club. In the later stage we started looking at developing kind of other kind of stuff. And what happened at that stage, we started to look for a youth officer, because there was no full-time youth worker anywhere around. They weren't heard of. So Joe Goff came in at that at 81 after a campaign in early 2.
Whoa.
Yeah, well, from you're saying you started that in 6.
Well, we were talking about it in 74.
Yeah.
Because at that time we were just saying that we didn't have it, and we were after getting all the youth clubs in Waterford at the time. There was quite a few of them around. There was St John's, there was the
St Joseph's,
there was and one in Ferrybank.
Neville.
They were all doing their own thing. There was no
cohesion,
no structure, no nothing.
Right.
And so they decided then that they'd form the Waterford Youth Service. So we had a committee formed from that, and it came from all the clubs. They all had different people.
How was St Francis's formed itself at the start? How was St Francis's formed?
St Francis were formed, as we'd say, by 2 Franciscan friars at the time. They came in and found that there was a niche in the, well, I won't say niche, there was a need. There was a need within the city. Now, and you have to remember, St. Francis, or the Friary as we used to call it, is not a parish. So therefore, it didn't have a parish to go around. And you take it, these two priests decided to talk to a couple of lads. They were going to start it. And then they
started off by talking to the altar servers down in the church down in the Ferry.
And they start talking to, who were friends of theirs, fellas they knew and fellas they played ball with and different things. And they started the club like that. And they found that the club was so small that it got so big that they had to have, as you say, restricted numbers, and you had a waiting list for people to come in on. And I do remember them sending out a flyer to the secondary schools, to the Mercy, to the De La Salle and all that, for saying that there's a youth club open and it's now in the centre of the town. I remember we doing that, and that went out, and that's how it basically started off.
I can remember walking into Cork Road, because we were living in Woodlawn Grove, and a few hundred yards down the road, before you get to the entrance at WIT, which was only about opened at that stage, I'd say, Desi and Ricky Whelan used to be walking. I'd meet them with Lee Marsh and Andrew Marsh, and we'd walk in that whole Cork Road to go into the youth club on a Saturday night, and from the grotto outside up to WIT and the Autoport where it is now, there was not only ditches on both sides of the road. So there was nothing there anyhow. No. I'm talking now about us walking in.
Yeah.
What, 3.5
By the time
miles?
you get to the traffic lights here, there'd be a million in town.
But I suppose how it became and how it came so well, because it took in people from everywhere.
Absolutely.
It wasn't in an area. It wasn't in John's Park. It wasn't in Ballybricken.
I remember there was
in the centre of the town.
Liz Duggan, Michael Doyle, Michael Briggs.
Right.
There was a group. There was nearly groups from everywhere. There was no particular area.
And with the other youth groups have been parish things to different.
Yes. Well, the St. John's Youth Club, which was down at the corner there on Catherine Street, that would be attached to the St. John's parish. That was there.
At St. Joseph's.
St. Joseph's then was
Charlie Scanlon.
Yeah, that was
Charlie was very much involved in.
That would be.
You see, at the time then that the youth clubs were beginning to kick on a bit, it was always the strength of the local. Like if Ferrybank started over, or even say St. John's, would Michael D have been very strong involved in the youth club there?
Pascal Moore was big over Ferrybank.
Absolutely, yeah, and he went on to being the chaplain outside in WIT there for years.
The one thing I can remember why they started to bring the youth clubs together was because at that time, most of them had their hops or discos, as you'd call them, on a particular night, and groups came from different areas into them, and they created problems. And there was beginning to get fellas fighting, waiting for other fellas coming out of places, and rivalry coming between them. So they said, we better do something about this, bring it all under the one thing, so that when Ferrybank had their disco on, they knew that we didn't have it on, and this sort of thing, and everyone knew what was happening. And basically that's how they all came together, to string them all together and bring them together.
Absolutely.
When did they all come
together? I was saying
69?
70. I said 74. 74, 75, yeah. 73. I was married.
Previous to that, what was the appeal of St. Francis's then over the other youth clubs? Why would you have gone for them?
Probably a lot of it would have been the fact that it was the longer established.
Well, for years.
No, it wouldn't have been. No, it wasn't the longest established.
For me personally, Robbie contacted me and said there was a new youth club started up and they were looking for members. And I got an application form then and joined. And I think there must have been 2 other fellas in school with me that I said to, would they be interested in joining? And that's how I got in.
And if you saw,
I haven't got out since.
When we were joining, when I tried,
you wouldn't get a sentence down the court like
if you didn't take all the money at the time, it
was only rested in the account.
I suppose the unique thing about it as well is the number of marriages that actually came from the club over that period.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? There's a lot of people got married through the club.
Including himself.
The people,
I said including yourself.
We
won't
mention. The only one.
I know that. Yeah. Sure, look.
Yeah.
Go on. No, there's another one.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, sorry. No, I had met my wife before that.
And you brought her in then, is it?
Yeah.
He used his influence.
I was probably saying, where are you going? I'm going to St. Francis Youth Club. How should I miss a coach?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But we've had over the years now, I was only thinking there, I'd say in my time I can think, we've probably had maybe 5 or 6 youth club reunions.
No.
The previous one I can remember, not the last one, but the one before it, was the time we were down in the Bridge Hotel.
Yes,
we had a fantastic night there.
Yeah.
There must have been the best part of 200 people turned up down there.
Yeah.
Now, more previous to that was the bed of heaven to Vivian Malloy, when we had the mass. And we went down to the back of the Munster then.
Yeah.
Now that was another good night, strong.
But that was kind of a night that wasn't even planned, Pat. Because you came to me and you said,
absolutely.
Look, there's a mass down Friary for Vivian.
That's right.
And we'll go down to the Munster.
That's right.
And it wasn't planned.
No,
it
all happened impromptu.
Yeah.
But I have the address book that we had that night. No, I didn't think of it until I was walking over here. I have the address book of all the people that signed their name that night. And I still reckon there was the best part of 80 people there at that mass that night. In the Munster, and then we all, obviously, light refreshments.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, no games.
Now that we're all getting on a bit.
And then I think the other, I suppose, slightly unique thing about it too was the fact that we would have went for trips abroad.
God,
you know what I mean? Like we went to Rome, didn't you?
Yeah. I did, surely.
Michael
Mullins was big, in fairness to him now. Michael Mullins was a fierce influence on us, say, above, as in the general broadness, not just of St. Francis now, of general youth work in the city. He took a keen interest in it. And in the youngsters. I can remember 1975 was actually a holy year for young people. And thereby, we were given a trip to over to Rome. And I'd never forget it as long as I live. It was £90 for the 10-day pilgrimage. And Mickey Mullins, Mickey well knows we always called him that, Mickey Mullins got the bishop to sponsor half. So the 10 of us St. Francis Youth Club members actually got half a sponsorship of that. So me going then in 1975, it was only £45. I'll never forget the trip. As long as I live to this day,
I'll never forget it either, Pat, because I wasn't allowed to go on it because I was too old.
At least you're telling the truth.
But we had another trip in 78 to Rome.
77.
77 to Israel.
Yeah, we went to Israel.
Yeah. So, like we said, there was quite kind of, for a youth club at that stage to do stuff.
What happened to us? We went on the trip up to Tramore.
Tramore.
And now I'm here in the bicycle. Went to Rome and Israel.
Progress, Robbie.
That's a fact though, I remember that well.
You mentioned earlier about some of the activities that you used to do. Can you tell us a bit more about them?
Well, I'll tell you one of the things...
Do you want to turn off the camera?
Well, one of the things that just happened was the Waterford soccer team were going very well at the time. They won 5 or 6 leagues on the trot.
That's right.
And we didn't miss an away match. And we used to have 2 buses.
Absolutely.
At every away match.
Yeah.
Up to Drogheda, up to Dundalk, Dublin, Cork.
No matter where. Do you remember the year we went down to watch Georgie Best play? I'll never forget it. Down to Cork.
Do you know my abiding memory of Cork?
Go on.
The day we went down there and we came back and we stopped at a lay-by on the way back, and Waterford were losing 2-1 with about 5 minutes to go, and we stopped at a lay-by on the way back to have a bite to eat, and there was people in cars in the lay-by and they were going, wasn't that a terrible result? What? We said, sure, they won 3-2. And I remember a fellow called Carl Humphreys.
Oh yeah.
Scored 2 goals in the last 5 minutes.
Go hear that.
Yeah.
Oh God, I do know.
Do you remember the time the match when the ball came in?
I do.
We didn't. We couldn't afford a football.
Yeah.
We couldn't afford a football, and the ball came into the crowd. And some person happened to have something that would deflate the ball and bring it in. Yeah. The ball never went back, and we were playing with it down the park on that Sunday.
I swear to God, that's a fact. That is a fact.
I remember that well.
Do you remember? You know, it was like that the film The Great Escape. We were all trying to gather around and cover the fella that had the ball up. Do you think we were after robbing the Crown Jewels or something? It was only the fucking football. For fuck's sake. But anyhow.
So Thursday night in the club was kind of a games night, general sitting around kind of talk.
Games and discussions.
And discussions, yeah. Upstairs was discussions. And at some stage you were dragged into a discussion upstairs. And it could be from anything from Yeah. I remember we doing one there on the whole issue about birth and everything like that at one stage. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and that was really seen as being controversial. I can tell you at that time now.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, I'm telling you now, that was something to take on at that time.
That's right. Yeah.
That's
I one of the things that I remember on a Thursday night there, one of the Thursday nights, I never forgot it because they did that thing, the Chinese whispers.
Oh yeah.
And you know where you give somebody, and it was Owen O'Neill that we gave the card to, and somebody went into the room to him, and he read out what was on the card, and he walked out with the card then, and we had 20 people lined up to go in and get the story from the person sitting down. And so by the time the 20th person came back out and relayed the story to everybody, no relationship at all to what was on the card.
Absolutely.
And I'd say it must have been 30 years later, I was at a training course in the job, and here they had the Chinese whispers again. I said, deja vu.
That'll tell you how advanced we were.
I remember Thursday night we ran an apple tart eating competition.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why I thought Derek might be here today. And they were sitting down, and there was 5 or 6 in there, and all you had is water, and the ladies
who made the tarts,
the girls, and the tarts, and the lads were woofing down. And I remember, I never forget now, Derek Egan, and he get into a stage, and he turned around. I don't know how many he got through, right? And he just turned around, and there was buckets provided. You know what I mean? Turned around, made a choking noise, turned back, and started again. So there was something.
Did he win it?
He did.
We did. Now, did you mention that one? Do you remember the fundraiser that we had above in the chuck wagon?
Oh yeah.
For whoever would eat the most number of burgers. Now, it would only happen coincidentally, but at the time, we were after pulling in £700 in sponsorship. WLR came on and done it live. There was about 12 people sitting down. Now, thank God they asked me to be MC, because I wouldn't sit down and eat 3 burgers one after another. There's no way. I can't think of one of the lads now, 1 or 2 of the lads that done really well.
Did you do it, Martin?
Did you do it, yeah?
Did you win it?
I shouldn't remember that.
Didn't come near it.
Do
you remember me when I was in the club?
No. Hey.
If I was behind the pole, you wouldn't see me.
I was wondering where all the tarts and the burgers went.
Absolutely.
I learned it afterwards.
Yeah.
The other thing that used to happen, I think, then was the Saturday night then was disco night.
Yeah.
And Sunday morning then could have 2 different activities. Unplanned actually. They were as a result of being in the club, but the soccer was big.
Well, the only thing was planned on a Sunday morning was the choir.
The choir.
The quarter past 10 mass.
Right.
Yeah.
We used to sing at the quarter past 10 mass, and then
some people
go back to. Well, we were there, making noise.
Yeah.
Some people go back to the club then, they used to Toby Hickey, and then the others go down to the park.
That's right, get involved, yeah.
And do you remember then we'd come up to the little cafeteria opposite St. John's Church? What was the name of it? Was it St. John's Church or the one up around the other corner?
I said lads were gone at
I
that.
was gone,
we gone, yeah.
No, definitely gone.
There could be 20 of us up there on a Sunday morning after the game.
Well,
you know.
I was heading back. I was heading. We all heading home. I was heading.
Yeah.
I was heading home at that stuff.
Heading for the hills.
Yeah. I know it was.
You're sure you need to go across the wall.
Absolutely, yeah. That's a fact.
And if you stop and think of it, when you go back in time, you see all the bags now that people have. We used to all have derriere bags, plastic bags.
That's right.
with our clothes in them. We'd leave them all up on the hill down
That's
the park.
right, down the park, yeah.
And no one
shoes, pants, everything. Nothing.
Oh, yeah. You could have money in your pocket.
Change at home and walk out with my gear.
Absolutely.
You could leave it all there and have a game of ball. You know.
Yeah.
Nowhere to shower when you come back in.
I know, but it just set the whole day up to a brilliant day.
It
really did.
Do you remember when they opened the first office then down in Canada Street?
Down alongside your place.
Yeah. They used to be into my poor mother to let my son for sugar, and anytime anybody would arrive, they'd be a knock at the door to be Chris or Owen. Mr. McGrath, would you have any milk or some sugar?
Yeah.
Or the night Owen O'Neill didn't have a stag, but we decided to do something down in the office, and we ended up having rotten eggs and every other thing to try and do something with them. And your mother and father were outside, we inside, the amount of mayhem that we were causing, but your mother and father were out. What's all that night going? And Paul Murphy, Father Paul Murphy, the PP of St. John's at the moment, and he looking out to try and hide from him, you know. And we had some rare nights, okay.
Well, if you stop and think of it, like, surely they got, as you say, Pat, you know, the friendships that were made out of it.
Oh,
that people that you see today.
Absolutely.
That if I met you today, you still have a chat and you talk to people, you know, and that are still there around with people.
Yeah.
You know,
Was there a bagatelle table in the?
That's right. There was. Yeah.
That's right,
Yeah. We used to have bagatelle table tennis.
Yeah.
That's right.
We had the 2 table tennis in the front disco room.
Yeah, that's
We
right.
had the game of bagatelle.
Yeah.
We had the game of soccer.
Yes,
I
right,
remember
yeah.
the soccer
Yeah,
game.
I do.
That was big now.
And I remember.
Yeah, like, there used to be a waiting list to get off the soccer table.
I suppose nowadays you'd have to have computers in there.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's a fact.
And you were what was the age range when you were there? Was it 18, 19?
Oh gosh.
Well,
Yeah.
when I was in the chair, I was about 17, 18, kind of by the time it started, you know, and it was there up to, what, I was about 20, 21, 22, 23.
And when would schooling have finished for you then? Or when?
What's that?
16.
Like, would this have been like after you were finished your
No.
finished being school, you
You
got
see-
into this, or did
No. You were in it. That was one of the excuses. If you weren't going to be there for 3 weeks, that you could say to the committee, like, I'm studying, I won't be here for the next 3 weeks. Because if you missed 3 weeks on the trot, you were out the door. You know, there was always a waiting list.
And it was always a kind of a
And not
thing.
only that, but people just come down who were on the waiting list to know was there any movement.
Yes, yeah.
But then again, the committee at that stage where we said then became, I suppose, youth leaders, as you call it, but not for training or anything.
Yeah.
But like if there was a bus trip going, the older fellas that were there ran the bus and you did what we said. You know, we were back on the bus at such and such a time. There was no drinking thing, and we're going down to the match here or going there.
Absolutely.
And it was that, say.
But it was very much a social thing.
It was, yeah.
It was a friendship that you built with a number of people that...
But Vivian had come in, and Vivian was the friar, the Franciscan friar. He wasn't the first there, but he was good length of time there. And Vivian was trying to advance this idea of youth work and trying to do things, you know what I mean? And on a
So
Saturday...
he had come from Kerry where there
He
was
had,
a strong...
where there was, yeah. But on a Saturday night, Vivian come over, right, and he'd be there. And I remember Vivian, he was trying to get us to act in a responsible fashion and everything like that. And Vivian come over and who's the news girl down there? Because what we used to have is pews. Remember that? Pews along the side?
Yeah.
So we had church benches, church pews, kind of almost like that.
That's what we had on the side.
Who's the new girl down there? You know what I mean? I said, I don't know, I think she's so-and-so. I won't say Liz, but so-and-so, right? And he said, she seems very quiet there. Go over and introduce her and see if she go for a dance. I remember going down to this one on Vivian's advice, right? And turned around and saying, well, how are you? Welcome to the club every night that. Like, would you like to come out dance? No, I'm fine. Went back to Vivian, right? And no, she's not interested in dancing. Well, try and find somebody else. Somebody else goes down, no. So after about a half an hour anyway, eventually went back down and said, are you okay? Are you happy enough with the place? So one of her friends turned around and said, she broke her zip when she came in and she can't get up off the bench to go out for a dance. But Vivian was insistent. Oh, yeah. So the idea was that we had responsibility.
Yeah.
If you're on the committee, you had responsibility. It's like what you were basically saying is that somebody came along and told you, oh, there's drink down there. You didn't think twice. You went down and you done it. Yeah. And I remember another famous occasion, somebody came to a front door to us and he had a bloody nose and we found out who it was.
Absolutely.
I won't give names now, but he lived down near O'Neill's side and he had a bloody face and there was 3 people, you, me and O'Neill. And we went out to investigate. We had to go up to the Delta Sal Centre before we found out who it was. But there was that sense of responsibility that, like, I mean, say, if you're in the club, that we were given kind of that sense of responsibility to run in a manner. Except when Vivian would be over on a Saturday night and he'd be looking for a respectable distance for the Holy Spirit. He liked slow dances.
Do you remember the song? Do you remember the song? He barred one song. Now every time Vivian would be gone, Shatem.
So that was banned in the club.
He had it banned in the club, but I'll always remember
as soon as the door,
Vivian would be gone outside the door. There could be news from upstairs or something that somebody's upset and they want a word. The very second he'd be gone out the door.
But do any remember? Maybe not. And do any stop and think really what Vivian was doing down there? Just stop for a minute and think. When he came in on a Saturday night, he was looking for the most vulnerable person that was down there.
Oh, absolutely.
Who was down there, who was maybe could have, I can't say problems or anything like that, but he always had time to look around the hall.
But that was one of the things he said when he came.
Yes, when he said when he came.
He wouldn't interfere with
the running of the club. No,
except that he's reserved his
place
right to
and
bring
in someone and bring in someone that maybe that was shy. That was anything else. I remember doing. Someone had a bad stammer.
That's right.
And I'm not going to mention any names because I don't want to mention names. I remember Vivian got him, and he had actually, at one of the parents' nights, he actually went up and spoke to the child. But he had worked with them, true thing. But that was what Vivian was. Remember, you were just saying there that he was saying he came in and said, that girl in there. He probably felt that was that. But that was his youth work.
But he had the skill before.
He had
the skill that an awful lot of people never had.
The other two had nothing.
But they had nothing.
No,
they hadn't a clue.
the other, like as I can say, I can remember the three, and I can remember Ulick, and I can remember Art. Ulick was, he said, went, everything went, and he was grand, the man was grand. Vivian came in, and he wanted, it's your club. Ye run it, ye look after it.
Absolutely.
And that was it. And from that then,
but then, when he gave us that responsibility, we actually, we showed to it, do you know what I mean? Like once you'd achieve one thing, you'd go on, you'd achieve something else, and do you know something? All of a sudden there was no stopping what you wanted to do.
But like if you stop and think of it, 2 busloads of teenagers heading off down to Cork.
Yeah.
You know? And parents letting them, we say, going off. No, do you know what I mean? Like,
how many had you in the club at the house?
176 always.
Because
never
there was a waiting list for the.
It was capped at 176.
There could be 40 and 60 people on the waiting list. When a member would decline the membership, there'd nearly be a scatter down to the door the following week to see, am I at the top of the list? He's gone. That's word of mouth was really such a big thing at that time.
And at the time, if my memory serves me right, is that when you come to the leaving, when the leaving was there and people were going off to college later on,
absolutely.
and they were going off to college, there was a kind of a clamour where we were going to college, there was space in it, you know what I mean? Yeah. But people weren't willing to give it up. When they came back from the college, they still wanted to come down.
Oh, absolutely.
And you still wouldn't leave in, like if 9 people, say, 1 September went up to the college and reclined their membership of St. Francis, we didn't leave in 9 at the one time. They were phased in. You wouldn't have 9 new people on the one night. You'd have maybe 1 in 2 nights or 3 weeks or something.
But yet, Pat, if you stop and think of it, people coming in knew someone in there.
Yeah.
Friends of theirs in there.
And once they got in, they didn't want to be without it.
No, that's true. Yeah.
But I know my brother said to me recently, he was on Facebook, and this girl had posted up something. She was working away, but one of her favourite things she missed about Waterford is what it was. And one of the things she put up on it was she used to love coming home on a Saturday night to go to the disco in St. Francis.
Absolutely.
Do you know, so people who were away like used to come home for it.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't hear tell of it having that kind of number of young people at a disco. Like, if you saw the size of the hall that we had, the size of the hall wasn't this big.
No, half this, I'd say.
Half this.
Yeah.
And you could have 120 in it.
Yeah.
And there was rarely, if ever, and that was caused with bother or anything like that. You know
I never. Any of the time I was there, we never had any trouble. The only trouble we might have is some fellas coming to the door, wanted to get in. That weren't members. You know, that's the only trouble.
And all the other youth clubs were running at the same time.
Yes.
And they were all doing their own.
They all had their own thing. Yeah, all had their own thing. Yeah.
And we used to often as well. Weekends when there'd be nothing on, we could go off on a bus trip and we'd end up visiting maybe Ballin Road Club above, and they'd host our tea that evening. We'd have a game of ball with them, a tug of war, and a bit of a sports evening, like, and they'd have the disco after that, and we'd stay there until 10 or 11 o'clock, come home then.
10 we'd have to be home for 12 in bed though.
But you remember the night the bus broke down in Killarney?
Oh, he wasn't on
No, it wasn't on that.
Weren't you? Oh my God. We went down to Killarney on a day trip. What a mad idea.
And played matches.
Yeah. Played matches, and then when we came out to come home then, the bus wouldn't start. And of course there was no mobile phones.
No.
So
there was barely a phone on the street, never mind the mobile.
Wait, I tell you, Vivian arranged for us to get into the Ferry house.
Oh yeah.
And we'd use the phone, then we'd start going around to people, have you a phone at home? We have. Right, give us the number to be ring. And then, who else lives near you?
Yeah.
Who was it? Like send out a death notice, like, you know. And we remember coming in the road at 6 o'clock in the morning.
That's right, sure.
And we dropped Fergus Langford off at the regional college because he was going up to the Sarton office.
Oh yeah.
And he said, you can drop me here off. I'm just in time for work, is it?
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, they sent another bus down from Waterford to pick us up. Mad.
Can I take you back a little further into your actual individual childhoods? What it was like for you outside of the club and you can lead into the club growing up in Waterford City?
Well,
clean up bringing.
It depends on what part of the city you're in. Like, he's a blow-in. He'll always be a blow-in, right? And that's part of it. Depends on what part of the city. I grew up, we say, on the Yellow Road. So Ballybricken would be the big thing for us. The old fair, and then when the mark came on, and we'd earn a few bob on Thursday afternoons. We got away from school early to go over
the steps.
Hey, just take that with you.
But up on Ballybricken.
So you're saying it depends on which part of the city you
but because again, like you're saying, what was life like for you? Like, I mean, say for me growing up, Ballybricken was a big thing. And Thursday afternoons, after the fair moved, they put in the mart and the pens. And we used to play on the pens. We had a particular game we used to play up there, whereby you would start off where the old, there was a tower there that held all the old telephone equipment stuff on lead. And you start from there and you get a count of 100. And what you'd have to do is use the pens to swing open, keep the gate open and move. And what you do is you make your way through the maze. Somebody had to try and catch you, but you couldn't put your feet on the ground. So we ended up with bloody ringworm and everything from it, but that's how we lived it. There was a place up there then, we used to have HQ at the back of where the guards barracks is now. So that was kind of it, and kind of coming up to the stage of the club then, so I would have went to school in Mount Sion. Muckle Ryan would have been there, and Michael Leamy, a number of lads up there would have been there, Tom Goff and stuff like that. So at that kind of stage what happened is, was kind of this idea, like what the lads were saying, somebody turned around and said, like, what are you doing Thursday night? Oh, I'm in the club Thursday night. All right, where's that? And I get down there and the whole process started. So that's what it was like. And it's like, I suppose, in a bit of way, what Robbie and Chelsea were saying, is that Vivian was very much out looking to see is what actually function could the youth club fulfill. And one of the majority of things was, how can you socialise in a safe environment? And that's for me then what it turned out to be, that I found it a great place to socialise. With the end result is, although I had friends in school and everything like that, that fellow over there is probably my longest friend of 42 years as a result of it. And yet, he's only a blow-in, you know what I mean? But, like, I mean, say, we would constantly meet the whole time, you know what I mean? So that's me, kind of, you know?
Well, I was born in Canada Street, down next to the People's Park, so the People's Park was my garden. So I was never short of a play space or anything like that.
I thought you were going to say apples from the orchard.
In the park, get a grip, really. They wouldn't last. And a couple of chaps I was in school with then were from out John's Parkside, and they were playing soccer with Johnville, so I joined them as well. So I played soccer with Johnville for over 40 years, and I joined the club then, and that was my social outlet from 15 to whatever age it was.
Still.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, I'm still on the board of directors here, so I'd be fairly involved with a lot of the stuff that goes on here.
And would you have any strong memories, individually or collectively, of childhood in Waterford, things that you would have seen around, or like sites around the city? We spoke with some people about the streets that were gone, like there was Rocher Street up above and Peter Street as well, and the people who would live there.
Well, Robbie would have a stronger memory of that now than any of us, because he lived in...
I lived in Arundel Lane, and that's where I would have been. Well, I lived there for a good few years, but originally from Water Street. But yeah, there was a lot of, like you said, Peter Street was there, and that's where I spent a lot of my childhood, playing down around where now is the city's shopping centre. Yeah, and there was families living down there were living in Peter Street. There were quite a few families living in there, and it's strange when you go back up yet High Street as well. There was families living down on High Street as well. So like when all those houses were knocked, people were moved. So everyone kind of moved out of the city centre, And there was quite a few people in Arundel Square. There was families in Arundel Square that I grew up and we played ball and stuff down around which was Cook Lane, we used to call it at the time. It was a car park where now the city shopping centre is. It was halfway down Peter Street and led down into High Street, and it was a big open car park. And that was our football pitch, and that's how I got to know. Like Shave was only down the park. We used to play ball up around there, and then play ball down the park, and we got different fellas. So when the youth club started in St. Francis, I knew some of the lads, and that's how I got involved. And I was so close, living close to it,
And on Peter Street, were there tenements?
There would have been tenements there. Yes, yeah. There was quite a few tenements there with families living in them. But so you're probably talking about 56 around that, maybe around that time. There would have been tenements in them. Yeah.
And do you have memory of what they were like, or?
Vague memories of them. Like you say, they were just big, tall houses. So if you're talking about running around as a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old, even a 10-year-old, they were just big houses. That's all with people living in. That's all. You know, such thing as saying, oh, you go down, you meet someone down the street. We're all played out in the street. You know what I mean? That was the street was our play.
From what I can remember, Robbie, after coming in, said we came in the late '69. and only getting used to the place up there that you're talking about, even Patrick Street, Peter Street. But there would have been an awful lot of the inner city at the time. None of the shops or the houses or that would have even been painted up like. It was a concrete finish. It was either a stone finish, a concrete finish, but that was it. Like there was no matching colours and.
No.
Like about the manor there now, I'm just saying. Right. That whole place was just a mass of a concrete finish.
Yeah. I suppose I don't know when they did actually knock them. I can't give you a year or anything like that, but there were a lot of them knocked, and a lot of people that were living on there were housed up the town, as people would say, up around Iller Road and up around and further up the place that were housed up there then. But there was a community down there. There was a lot of shops, a lot of people living in and small shops, dairy shops around the square, in around that area. There was quite a few.
When people talk about, we've had a number of people talk about tenements and stuff, so it's kind of it's an interesting thing. I think it's something that's gone from the city, that lots of people in one building thing. Unless you're down Coll Street now, but it'd be the closest thing to it again.
Yes, yeah.
But when people say tenements it brings up an idea of a condition, of it being a low condition of living standard.
Well, they didn't look the best from the outside. Like, I remember the ones down on Adelphi Quay, and there were steps up to them. I think there were about 20 steps going up to them, because I used to go down there on a Thursday evening with my grandfather after school, and I used to sit on the steps there to watch him loading the Great Western. It used to go out from there, and there was certainly two huge buildings there. They seemed enormous to me, like, at the time, but you'd see loads of people going in and out of them. Like, there were obviously families living in them.
There would have been quite a few. There would have been just families living in rooms in them. How many people were living in the rooms, I don't know. Then there was houses there as well. Like, there was, my favourite memory, there was about 2 Georgian houses that were, we say, derelict looking. And the rest of them, there were houses. There were actually houses with people living in Peter Street. There was O'Neill's and Sheen's and all those. They had their own houses down there. And it's only when the shopping centre went to be built and went to be bought that these houses were knocked and to take in the shopping centre.
And with all the kids from all the different, from the tenements, from the owner occupiers, they've all played together.
Yeah.
And would there have been a difference? Would you have gone, so and so, you could tell? Was there that social thing? Was it just a place that they lived, or was there like a?
I don't think
that
so.
Social.
No.
Well, from my point of view, anyway, like, if the park was there and the more people we could get to play the game of ball, the better.
No, there was none of that. Like, everybody, I suppose if you looked at it, no one had anything then. You know, like, there was the doors were open. I can remember down there, playing down there, and a bucket rain out of the heavens on us, and you go up and you'd be running to the road and someone come in out of that, and it was a neighbour's, get in out of the rain before you go home to your mother. And you couldn't do anything. So you couldn't go to a line because you couldn't do anything wrong because so-and-so would tell your mother or tell your father. In my case, it was tell my aunts. You know what I mean? It was that. And no, I could never see any difference in it. I think society's changed since then, you know what I mean? Like, if you don't have 4 televisions now, you have nothing, you know, that sort of thing. And those days we all had nothing. You know, there's no such thing as, we had, like as I said, we didn't have a...
You know, Rob, and I think maybe that's a part of what maybe the difference is now like today. Back then, when we were younger, and I'm just saying is we were growing up in that, everything you done, you got stuck in and you took the time out, you learned whatever you had to learn to do it. I'm not saying about going to college or stuff. I'm just saying, you know, having a good games night above in St. Francis, having a good disco night. Yeah. It wasn't by chance that Ray O'Brien just picked up this record as Ram. Yeah. Like, he put a whole load of work into it, but there was great rewards out of it.
I suppose too, if you go back in that time, there's no such thing as designer gear.
Well, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? If you had clothes, you had clean clothes, that was it. There's no such thing as having Nike or any of them sort of things. You got a pair of runners and there's things like that.
You got a pair of runners and you were the talk of the town.
I think it was the fact that everybody was the same. It wasn't the case that, you know, they're pretending. No, the reality is everybody basically had very, very little. I'm amazed. They go around now with credit cards now. In our day, we went down shopping, we had a book in the shop, and you bought stuff on the book, and you hoped that by the end of the week you were able to pay the book off, you know what I mean? And if the rent man came around on a Thursday, you might have had to hide one Thursday because the money wasn't there. You'd have to stay quiet. Or you'd be waiting for the gas man to come around, and when they'd emptied the gas, you get what they call a rebate. But you'd forget that your 18-year-old brother might have diddled the machine and broke the seal and took coppers to do what he wanted to do, and there was no rebate. But everybody was the same, you know what I mean? There was a sense of living on tick, but it was an honest kind of a tick, you know what I mean?
There was, but I suppose people looked after one another.
Yeah.
There's the difference. People looked after one another. Like, you know, I suppose your parents, when your parents left you out, they knew that you were going to be looked after, no matter where you went in that area where I was.
Well, that was the thing about it. You didn't just have your parents. Everybody in the neighbourhood was a parent.
Yeah.
And you could get a clatter off anybody.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's true. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But I think that goes back
you
to
deserved it or not.
That goes back to the dinner dances that we had every year with the parents coming down to the Tower Hotel, when we'd have the numbers could be 220, 230. As the years were going on, the parents got to know each other from our regular contact of events that were going on. Even the parents built up. Like Owen O'Neill's mother today, not your own mum passed away. Yeah. She was like my own stepmother. Like those people.
But if you go back, and the chap was asked the question about go back in time, when I was younger playing down below in around the room, describe that. The people living down there, they all knew one another. Your mothers, your aunts, everyone knew. They knew everyone down there, and you kind of got on with life. That's the way it was. You know?
And it's a Waterford thing too. I think is that this idea that you need to know your seed breeding generation. In other words, the mothers were very good at knowing every link about everybody. So when you went somewhere, they actually knew everybody. So I might go down, and I might have never have dreamed that my mother would have ever known Chelsea's mother, you know what I mean? And yet they'd meet up, and all of a sudden then you realise, there's a history there, or whatever like that. But everybody was...
I was stopped down with his mother when years and years ago when we were down there. His mother went to school with my mother. Yeah. You know, and that was the thing, you know.
Do you know what, lads? You're beginning to sound like Horse Pictorial Week.
But I tell you what,
you've got the Cork accent for it, man.
Not the only thing that came out of Cork in the last number of years that's any good.
Pat Hurley.
No. Drisheen from the English market.
Absolutely.
And if any of us were down there, we'd have to bring some up and distribute it around.
How long are you here
now? December the 20th, 69.
And you still haven't lost the Cork accent?
You're a langer.
But you'd be talking about people knowing like my young fellow went to his Debs out of De La Salle, and I'd say there was about 24 or 26 came back to my house after it, and about 2 weeks later I met George Kehoe, who was in the club with me, and he said to me, my fella rang me the night of the Debs, and he said, we're going back to a house, and I asked him whose house we were going to. Owen McGrath's house. Owen McGrath, that's Chesley's young fella, that'll be grand, he said. Do you know, because he knew like that there wasn't going to be anything out of the way, you know, that they'd be looked after up there.
He knew he could come back and Seamus after, was my young fella up with you.
Not that I would have known.
But that you were just, I'm only saying, when we came to Arklow, from Arklow in '69, we were up there for about 5 years before we came. But when we came and moved in then to
you run out of there as well?
Absolutely. The IDA was only in its infancy. But in the very, at the back of Woodlawn Grove then, there was no houses. Used to just be a field. But we made a soccer pitch out of it.
Yeah.
And I mean, two of the strongest players that ever were very good in Waterford, but they never just went the whole, Liam Marsh and Andrew Marsh.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's, again, going back to the club, like, once I got into the club, and I was playing with the soccer out there with the lads, and then I started playing soccer in the park. The lads were more interested in getting to the park on the Sunday morning, but they had to get into the club first.
Yeah.
And they were all, Liam and Andrew,
We've got
Kevin,
two good players.
yeah.
Which I was just looking at the photograph of the team there. There was some great players on that team.
Don't go over now.
I will.
You go over, don't you go over.
See, will you be able to name them?
Oh, Leo.
Liam Welsh.
Liam, from Drain, John, Murray Power,
Yeah.
Vic Merriman,
Victor Merriman, yeah.
Jordan McLaughlin.
Yeah.
I'll come back to him. He's
That's
in front of
Handsome
me.
Monk.
Liam Hennebury,
Yeah.
Sue Hart.
Yeah.
I'll come back to you. Brian Hennebury.
Yeah.
What's he? Sorry, excuse me. His sister relocated up there. There's yourself, Robbie.
Yeah.
Is that John Power?
Yeah.
From the lane.
My famous friend here, Muckle Ryan.
Yeah.
And Nicky Donnelly.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten he was in the club. Hey, I didn't do too bad for a Cork man, did I?
The fella behind him is Jack
Yeah, you always put your
Jack
toes in
O'Keefe,
where it's not on.
And who was the other fella? That's Christy Russell.
Christy, yeah. Yeah.
Who was this now that we're looking at? What was this?
That was the
St. Francis
Youth Club soccer team.
We got sponsorship for the jerseys.
The great thing about the soccer at that time was that team, as in from our youth club, they could travel half of Ireland playing another team from Ballyone or Kerry or Killarney or someplace, because it would be a national competition within the National Federation of Youth Clubs, which I became a member of the executive of after being the chairman here.
One thing you'd say about Waterford people, that they're very respectful, aren't they, and quiet, you know?
Yeah, not like the Cork fellas.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Come here, I always brought a bit of crack to my table. That's a great photograph to have.
Anyone that say that is you.
That's why I'm not in the photograph.
Yeah, that was another thing that they used to organise was the August bank holiday weekend. We used to get a weekend up in Gormanston College, because Gormanston was a friary college, and the friars used, I think, 20 quid it just cost for the weekend. We'd go off on a Friday and we'd come back until the Monday night, and like for us it was to have the use of a pool like for a weekend. My God, like we thought we could have been in Benidorm, you know. And one of the things that used to come out of that, and we used to say when we'd be going away, a lot of the people who were doing lines went out with each other. We said this will surely finish them off, like, because the fellas don't want to be off playing ball with the fellas, and the girls just want to be with the fellas, and the fellas we say no, I want to go playing ball with the lads. There was anything that survived Gormanston was a wedding in waiting.
I'll have to be excused, lads. I must go back to work for 4.
Oh gosh.
Do you know what we will do? This side of Christmas we'll have a reunion.
Pat, look after us.
Okay?
Yeah.
Alright?
See you, Pat.
Be good.
I call in for the coffee.
From here on in, it's only all lies now. Lads, I'll see you in the class bar at 5.
You have some hope.
Do you think we're all married men now, aren't we?
Do you think I'll be left?
We're all married, Pat, you know.
Can I get you to scoot over a little bit to the right? So we won't keep you too much longer now. We'll be chatting.
That's been brilliant. That's been great.
It's fantastic photo altogether. Great.
I suppose maybe just to run through it as kind of a long kind of thing. Art and Hurley started it as Franciscans. Father Vivian came in there between the 70s and the 70s, up to just about the 80s. Then Father Kevin Egan came in. Kevin was with us for about maybe 10 years or whatever like that. And when Kevin then left, it was Pat Cogan, who's the head person in Respondo at the moment, as Franciscan. They're the kind of Franciscans that were associated with it.
But he certainly didn't have the same time for it as
I won't get into that now,
but
but what I'm saying is just in terms of...
Come on,
Come on,
go on, say it, go on, say it. Say it a bit, I mean, pigs here of it. I wonder if we'd love it,
it looked like with his stewardship.
Yeah.
You know, when it should never have happened.
I suppose the other thing is when we're talking about Father Vivian, what was interesting is what we're saying is how he was trying to be forward thinking and that. He was the first one that introduced us to this concept or idea of a youth officer, youth worker, because that wasn't available, it wasn't around. Like when we were in St. Joseph's long ago, you had what you call a volunteer, but the volunteer you called brother. It was a brother that was down there.
Yeah.
But
that's because it was belonged to the Legion of Mary.
Absolutely, yeah. But Vivian kind of introduced us to chap Lawler from Wexford, that had actually finished a recognised course in the Polytech in Belfast, and he had come back to Wexford to do youth work, Jim Lawler, and he brought him down to do some training with us. So that was part of what he was trying to do. So
that was the first time there was ever any kind of
training
of any shape or form.
And he tried to develop that then again, and even at that stage, I remember I went to Belgium for 2 weeks to do training even after that. So he was forward thinking. I know, yeah. He was forward thinking though, in the sense that he was trying to, and that's where I was saying, going back to the story that you asked earlier on, who Owen O'Neill was, that we had a campaign in Waterford, a famous community grouping that came together in Witt outside Waterford Institute of Technology in 79, Waterford 79 it was, and it was a conference about trying to look at that, and at that Vivian was poking me, right? And who was leading that time was actually Michael White, who was an ex-chairperson of the youth service, the Waterford Regional Youth Service. Michael was in charge of the Waterford Community Service Council, and Vivian was poking me to ask him questions. And one of the questions was basically is, could we have representation and a seat on Waterford Community Service Council? And the other question is, when is Waterford going to get a youth officer? So we started a campaign after that. Kieran O'Neill, that runs the forum, was involved with us. It was a few of us involved with it, and we done a campaign called Why, and WHY was Waterford Has Youth, and that was the kind of forcefulness of going to government and saying we needed that. The VC got involved, and at that stage then Joe Goff came on board, and we actually housed Joe Goff in our premises in Lady Lane for the first number of months, whatever like that. He was an appointment through the VC, and then after that we decided that really there was kind of stuff that we needed to do ourselves, to develop ourselves, and that's where Owen O'Neill came in. So Owen O'Neill came in around about 82, late 82, and he's the regional director of Waterford Regional Youth Service now at the moment currently. So
for another month. And that's kind of the sense of longevity of where people came from into an organisation, gave a commitment to it, and in some instances then made a lifelong commitment. Like, you've been on the board 35, 40 years? I've been on it good while, Mark.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? It's just looking at kind of where it developed to.
What you're talking about there, I can go back, I won't say I go back, but I go back to 73. and going to a National Fed conference up above in Gormanstown. And there was no government representation at it. And you're talking about all the youth clubs from all over Ireland. Yeah. And it was beginning, the start of the National Fed. And we were up there at a meeting, and there was no government minister there. Mm-hmm. And one came from the floor that we'd march on Dublin. And it was passed, and we were getting ready to march on Dublin. And we were, of course, at the time, the chair people of the thing were a lot older, and they didn't want to hold youth of Ireland walking on Dublin. And they said, well, hold off. And we got a junior minister come out the next day. But it was McNally. McNally, he was a guard at the time. I think it was McNally's name. He actually ran for president for the country later on. I can't think of his name roughly offhand. He was on the chair, and of course he was a guard, but he was on the committee. And they really got a fright that day up there that we were all going to march on. But you come along then so many years later, and you're still struggling to get something. You know what I mean?
It took years after that, even as we got them, you know. But how difficult things were going back then. I remember when we first started in the youth office and started youth office. You know what I mean? We used to have a thing called a Get-Stetner machine. And what it was is you'd have to type something out on this kind of page of stuff, right?
Just cut it out.
Yeah, and then what you'd have to do is you'd have to hand crank this thing, and it was like going back, and it would spit out the photocopies of what you wanted. So, like I mean, say, you know, like it was tough trying to do that at that stage. To get a pamphlet out, get a leaflet out, like we knew nothing about layouts or doing that like that. So, you know.
Sure, when the youth office opened, we bummed the space off the Friars.
That's right, upstairs.
And we bummed a typewriter off a Mother Duke area from the Mercy Convent, who was running a commercial school. Yeah. And that was the height of it.
Yeah. And the cook that was in the friary done a secretary for a while.
Yeah.
So, like I mean, say, you know, that it's the history, the kind of that's going back a bit. You know what I mean? But,
but there's still an awful lot of people that were involved in St. Francis Youth Club are still involved in youth work in some shape or form. Yeah. You know.
Where exactly was you mentioned it earlier on now, but where exactly was?
Do you know where the back of the shopping centre is now, up above in
do you know where the library is?
Yeah.
If you go down past the library, you pass the back entrance into Roach's doors, and at the end of that there's a building jutting out, and that was St. Francis Youth Club.
It's actually, there was a wall from the Friary originally came up to that building, and we had a door. The door was on the street. It was a big building. It's still there, but they've moved back. They've taken the door that was there in and put it in at the side, and it's that building down there. That's where St. Francis Youth Club was.
So it's literally the back entrance. It's actually the back drive-in entrance to the Franciscan Friary now.
No, yeah.
So as you.
Yes,
yeah. And as you go in over that was our front entrance. That's where you stood.
We'd go over on the evening times, and we'd go into the Friary and go through the Friary. We get the keys in the Friary and come back through the gardens of the Friary back over, and we'd open up the hall over inside. That's the way it was done. I remember walking through there one time. I remember Father Aloysius
was outside his office,
and there was no women were not allowed in the cloister in the thing. And of course, at that stage, we all had long hair. And I was standing on my back talking to, I think it was Ulick I was standing talking to at the time. Next one I got this tug in the back of my hair, and it was Aloysius. Oh, he said that, and he turned and he thought it was a woman that was in the back of the flat. I was in his 70s at the time, the man, you know. But he couldn't understand you're all going in with long hair.
And I remember like that, what you're saying is your responsibility was to open up the club in the night and to close the club in the night. And I remember closing it, who was now the person is my wife, Margot. And like that, at that stage things were starting to relax, so a woman was able to kind of come in. So we'd walk up the steps back, open up the door, walk straight through, walk out, leave the key in where the reception area was, walk out the front door closed behind us. I remember us walking up the steps and opening the door, and Margot was in front of me. And Vivian was down on his knees behind the door with a newspaper, and the minute she walked in, he flaked her on the leg. Well, she jumped sky high. He was full of his fun, you know what I mean?
He was a character.
But I remember going up one time to the Feast of St. Blaise.
Oh yeah, get your throat blessed.
And he was there, and he put the cancer and he squeezed him. He said to me, "This isn't any good for drink," he said.
You weren't there at the time they decided to do on the Good Friday. They decided to do the 12 Apostles. So they got 12 of us out of the...
You see, anything that went on in the ferry...
They had no parish, so therefore they grabbed and asked 12 for 12 Apostles. And we said, what are we to do? Well, he said, Father Gregory was the head priest down there. He was the guardian. And so he said, he'll come along with a basin of water and he'll wash each of your feet, see? So before going in, he said, what'll happen? And Yuri said, just take off your shoe, take off your sock. And he's just holding over the basin.
One shoe and one sock.
So as one of the lads came in late, so he rushed over and sat down, right? He saw us taking off the shoe and the sock. So by the time it came to him, he had his 2 feet on. So the basin was put down in front of him, and he put his 2 feet into the basin. There was 11 apostles trying to keep a straight face. And we still to this day, I can still see it happening. And just went on, and he dried his face, and that was it. But the rest of us, looking down, if you can picture a package on a Good Friday night, and sitting down there watching. There were strange things happened, you know what I mean? There
was always a bit of blackguard.
There was, yeah. There was always, yeah.
We used to have the choir at the 10:15 Mass. And I'd say for a good while, a lot of the fellas in the choir didn't realise there was a window up halfway up the church into the friary building itself, into the house. And the friars could come along, they could look out the window and they'd see everything that was, you know. We were there one Sunday morning, and one of the fellas, I don't know what he was been at on the Saturday, but he was there anyway. He decided he wasn't going to sing in the choir on this Sunday morning, and he just read the paper during Mass. And when he came down the stairs afterwards, Yuri was waiting outside. Don't remember that murder? I think. Oh, there was murder.
I remember the other morning, someone decided to read the paper as well, read the results, and he didn't see the girl that was conducting us, and she was. And he knew the song off by heart, and the rest of us stopped, and he said, "Hark!" His voice came out of nowhere. I think that finished us up there.
Yeah. There was also that kind of sense, as well as being locked in to the friary and the activities that happened in the friary, there's also this kind of element of getting involved in kind of social justice kind of stuff and that. So I remember Waterford mental health, Ted O'Regan and stuff like that. Yeah. We'd always be pulled in to help out with things. Remember they used to do that? Gymkhanas and stuff like that, you know.
I remember being up there putting up poles and fences and that.
Yeah. So that you have this sense of responsibility too, kind of, you know, develop that kind of that you need to give something back.
But both of you have seen the changes. Like where you're sitting today, and the work that GC that's gone on around has completely changed. You know what I mean? And I suppose the youth that's changed has come on in completely different ways. They have completely different problems that were around when we were young.
You wouldn't dream in a million years of bringing 150, 160 young people together in one venue unless you had plenty of, you know, it was not even a second thought then, but things have changed.
Yeah.
They've changed.
And as the youth clubs, I'm asking the question now, but are there still youth clubs out there?
Oh yeah. We have about 14, 15 at the moment, I'd say, that are purely youth clubs, as well as youth projects and all the other stuff. But there is a number of youth clubs around. Tramore,
they're on the increase again. Yeah, they almost died out completely for some reason. Because I remember when I joined the board of the youth service, it was nearly all youth clubs. I think we had 2 or 3 projects, and then the project started to get strong, and the youth club started to decline. And then when the recession came, the youth club started to pick up again, and they're flying again now.
There's a bit of a wrap up at the end. Would there be any of the pictures that you'd be interested in talking about that you brought in with you?
I could just show you maybe. I'm maybe not forgetting
Oh, you can't go.
You're just writing the background of it, that's okay.
She's a youth club member that won't talk.
Oh, that's one to be it.
You're right, too, you know that.
In the background anyway. So it's kitchen.
Thank God I'm not in that one. But there's one over there, but I'm not in that one. I actually had photographs of
What is that one there you're looking at?
That's a photograph that was taken at Gormanston College at one of the weekends. So see now.
Like some people went to Rome,
Yeah.
Israel, and I heard Belgium. We just went to Gormanston College.
Robbie, you should have just stuck around.
I would have been too old. That's your excuse then.
I don't know what year that is, but that's Maria Doyle. She's the principal up in.
Ex-principal. Ex-principal. She's retired.
She's retired this year.
She's retired this year.
Up in the Mercy Convent.
I suppose this one here is Gormanstown again, isn't it?
That's the same as what he shares.
Is that the same one, is it?
Yeah.
All right.
And
I suppose that would have been just Vivian himself at that stage.
No, I have a couple
earlier
of
ones.
earlier ones that happened.
Yeah. There's a thing we didn't talk about, was what we used to call search weekends. And they were weekends that developed kind of around about bringing groups of young people away to venues and talking about aspects of life and everything like that. And you go down on a Friday and you came back on a Sunday. Lads wouldn't have been involved in this now as such. But we used to have search and choice weekends. And it was about bringing people away and getting them to think about life, thinking about spirituality, thinking about all that kind of stuff. They were fantastic weekends. There's Michael Mullins now. He's the parish priest up in Ballybricken at the moment. That was Vivian there at the time, and the rest then are a whole group of people that were there at the time. I just brought that one in because that's Pat Franciscan? Pat Hogan, and that's Kevin Egan. So both of them would have followed on from Vivian in terms of that. We would have talked about the dinner dances and having your parents there, and that's a photograph from the dinner dance, kind of going back, you know what I mean? And again, as Robbie said, is they would have started in the U Club, and then we kind of developed into having things into the...
you got posh, Martin.
What?
You got posh.
I remember we'd end up down the Tower Hotel, and you could have 350 at it.
Yeah.
And you'd have the Rhythm Kings, Tommy O'Brien and my man Pascal Kennedy and that playing at it and everything like that, you know.
But I suppose you're talking about a time when it was dinner dances were you know,
in full flight.
And I just put that one because that's one of the trips that happened away. Now, where I'm not sure whether that was Rome or France, but Ian Redmond, Ian passed away there about 2 or 3 months ago, and Ian used to help us out on the Sunday mornings playing guitar. Fantastic guitar player from up around Grange, and you know, I thought it might be just appropriate just to say that, you know.
Oh, fantastic.
And
do you mind if I take stills of them?
yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, yeah.
No.
Okay. How do I change? And that's from the article, the whole article that was written for that it actually tells you the beginning of the club and things like that, what we used to do, isn't it?
Fantastic.
And that was the committee at the time. That was the committee at the time that we were praying there. That's Ballybricken again.
Are you on that one?
I'm in the back row.
Where are you in it?
Yeah, I'm just in there. That's your wife. That's Seamus' wife. Dean Welsh. Gilly O'Donoghue. And Michelle Green. Murray Power. And can't think of her name now. That's terrible. And you're talking about this side after Mass, that's the group after coming out of Mass on Sunday. And then that's, we say, a portion of the football team kind of thing. There's just something we put into it to show the club, to show how the club what it was, you know.
That's the magazine there.
That's it. That's
Our Boys
the magazine. I don't know if it's still going, does it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
There are just some photographs of the inner city that at the time might have been something you might have. That's all inner city stuff.
Wow.
all stuff is going derelict stuff and that, you know.
Are we okay to use
Yeah.
it? Does anybody need class permission?
Well, I don't think so because they were taken by Owen himself, so. That's gone, I mean, well, that's the road tax.
That's Annie Brophy's shop, is it?
No,
the Wishes Brophies.
Oh,
down
right.
He actually used to do sweets, so he used to sell sweets to the shop, so that's where, it's where, do you know where Sean King's pub? You know King's pub?
Yeah.
No, the building beside that.
Oh, yes,
That's
yes.
it.
Right.
It's the pub down near the glass factory, isn't it?
The yellow house.
That's the pub in the old glass factory, yeah.
Can we go from the top left and work our way around?
Yeah.
You keep what is the best way to do that? That's the first one. Then. So what's that one there now?
This one?
Yeah. Or do we know is this a...
I don't know that one at all.
Do you know the next one?
What they want. Didn't anyone think to write on the back of it? O'Neill told them, so I can't take any. He'll be able to name them out.
Yeah,
That's the old pub where the old glass factory in Johnstown used to be.
just Keneally's.
And Keneally's, yeah, and that used to be quite a haunt after work with the glass factory.
It was, yeah,
that's
that's
what I mean. Brophy's was a wholesaler, like a cash and carry for sweets and all stuff like that. Just around southeast, and they're down where the tax office used to be down around from the Tower Hotel there. That's that kind of building there, you know. I'll pick out the rest yourselves.
And the other ones?
I think that's down opposite Brophy's. Isn't there?
It's very similar, it looks very similar, isn't it?
Yeah, in our place there now.
It's opposite, it's where, there's the bookie office is in there now.
Is it?
Yeah, the bookie office is in there.
What was it you're saying about this one then?
That's the corner of the Tower Hotel.
And
The
that's,
Tower Hotel is down this side of that, but that's part of the.
How would that be to go down?
See the tower.
the traffic lights, as you come around the corner
yeah.
for the tower, as you go out to the arcade.
The traffic lights.
The
are
traffic
here.
lights, that's the other side.
Because you're heading down Number Street there towards the bridge, and the Tower Hotel. The entrance to the Tower Hotel is further down here.
Or possibility that
There's a
is
physiotherapy.
is that further on? That's just
That's
just further
exactly, yeah. You're dead right. It's still
Oh,
just
there,
down
yeah.
here, yeah.
Yeah.
No?
There's a physiotherapy place here now, I think, and the Tower Hotel will be taken, then the building over.
Yeah.
Yeah.